Welcome back to another episode of Midnight Machine Shop. In this one, we paint the Humvee. So it goes from looking like an old busted up piece of junk to something more respectable like this. Before I can start painting, I have some minor repairs to make. There's this crack spot in the hood, which is what happens when the air cleaner lid bolt is put in the wrong place. So I'm going to make a patch panel to go over here and rivet into place. The second spot's down here that they must have crashed into something and knocked a hole in the fiberglass. For my patch panel, I've got some thin aluminum. I'm going to scribe some lines, cut it out. Next, I'll just round the corners off using the snips. Just start by knocking a 45 off to give the semblance of a radius. Now that I've got my epoxy mixed up, I'm just going to start applying it on here. You can see why I've got the tape on here to just not spill it everywhere. But I know it's going to squeeze out, so I'm trying to thin it down. I'm just going to drop the panel on. I'm going to drill a hole for the rivet. For the rivets here on the hood, what I'm doing is I'm taking a 3/16 ID washer and putting it over the rivet to give the rivet something to grab onto and spread its load rather than just pulling through the fiberglass. Using this piece of scrap steel, we're going to make a paint shaker. So our homemade paint shaker is going to use a sawzall blade and a sawzall. So check the spacing here so that the can doesn't smash into the guard of the sawzall. The way this is going to work is I'm going to take a band clamp and put it on here to secure the can of paint. And then a second. If the ends of the hose clamps are a little long, take a set of aircraft snips, knock the corners off at a 45, and that way they're not super sharp. And then shake away. For painting the hood, taking the lights out is probably a good idea. That way it's easier to paint behind them. I'm going to leave the side running light in place, so I'm not going to take that one off. To get the connectors out, you got to feed them through one at a time because the hole in the hood is just bigger than that. To loosen the blackout light, you'd use a 9/16 wrench and sock it on the other side, and you can pull all the mounting hardware off. There's blackout light. The passenger side is going to come off the same way. Take the plate off, 3 bolts. You're going to want to get this all clean because you don't want to paint dirt. And you can see on the hood, they painted it with the lights in place. And then we'll do the same for this other side. Now before I start painting, I'm going to go around with wax and grease remover to get all the crap off of here that I can. That way it'll take the color and I won't be putting paint over dirt. One final step is tack cloth. This cloth will pick up all the loose dirt and dust and everything else. These are available through Amazon. And it's a good last kind of step. I mean, this is never going to be a show car finish. It's not meant to be. It's meant to reflect what this vehicle really is. It's a surplus military vehicle. Maybe it'll have the good at 50 feet look to it, but it'll at least be one color and not sun faded and crappy like it was. Paint I'm using is 686A Tan from Gillespie Coatings in spray cans. It is not the official Cark, but it is easier and far safer to apply. A minor trade-off is that I'll be giving up the ability to decontaminate the truck after a chemical agent incident. But if I was ever in a situation where I needed to do that, I've definitely got bigger problems. It took every bit of 12 cans of paint to complete the job. While it's not perfect, the factory paint job from AM General had runs and drips in it. I made sure to not add any more. After 2 minutes of sawzall shaking, every bit of paint came out of this can. And this stuff's notoriously hard to shake and spray. Pulling the tape off here. And while there was some paint on the windshield gasket, that's the way it was when I got it. I mean, they didn't paint a Ferrari. People have told me stories of these things getting painted by troops in the field with buckets and brushes. And truth be told, I couldn't be happier with how this came out. These patch panels, like them, love them, hate them, whatever. They're part of who this truck is. There's 2 types of composite turn signal lights. This one with the aluminum housing has a separate lens that can be taken out. So that makes it a lot easier to mask this off for painting. To get the lens in or out, these screws on thread, and you can take the retaining ring loose. Now I can take my
Masking tape off. I can slide the lens gasket back into place. Put the lens itself back in. There's two smaller screws that go down here. I'll put those in after I paint those screws separately. In taking the lamp apart or putting it back together, the way these screws are cut, they're a straight slot. So if you try to use a screwdriver like this where it has a tapered tip, it might not grab as well. So there are specialty bits that have essentially a straight profile that fit into this screw really well and won't slip. And I'm just making sure to kind of start all the screws before tightening them down just so it's nice and even. I'm going to replace the old reflectors with new ones. They're made by Grote. And I've got new screws as well to replace the old rusty hardware. Once the paint's dry and cured, go ahead and start putting reflectors and all the other stuff back on. They're now red again. The old ones were pink from sitting at the motor pool in the sun for years. The other thing we're going to have to do is come back and touch these up. These are originally painted the same color as the truck. So I'll mask this off and then spray this down. There's this little bumper. Its part number is 123399612. And it just goes into here. There we go. And right there is the outline of where the bumper sat against the truck bed. The other thing I saw recently was that someone who worked at AM General said the hooks are designed to go from the inside out. So I'm going to give it a shot here and see how that looks. With as far into this process as I am, every time I come across a rusty nut, bolt, washer, whatever, so I just go ahead and replace it. For what it costs is next to nothing, and it beats having a bolt just sit in a box till the end of time. After pulling the weather cap off, I noticed something when I took this out. There's no gasket. In the military manual, there is actually no gasket listed, but in the H1 manual, there is. It's made out of cork. So what I did, I had some rubber gasket material laying around, trimmed it to size, put some holes in it, and now I will have a gasket to go in this place. On the 4-man cargo cover, there's a set of bows that support the cover itself, and the bows are secured in place with these loops. On each side, there's a loop here by the seat belt, and then all the way back here by the end of the bed. Not every truck will have this loop, but if yours doesn't have it, the hole should exist on the fender, and then all one has to do is just get the screw, and on the back there's a nut with a lock washer permanently attached. So once it actually starts to grab, you don't even need a wrench. It'll just tighten up. This screw, there's a backing plate for the C-pillar underneath here. So depending on where that backing plate is, you might have to drill that hole through that backing plate. The next thing to go on is this bracket here. There's two bolts that come down from the top, a backing plate, and then nuts on the bottom side. To verify the proper orientation of this bracket, I checked on GovPlanet. I looked at M1035s and other soft top trucks that had cargo covers, and this was the orientation they were all in. Reinstall the loops that hold the cargo cover using new screws and nuts. The nuts are the same as the ones that are for these loops, so when you order those nuts, just order extra. On the cargo bows, there's a center support, and that's in over here. Now, a new set of cargo bows won't have this hole drilled for the screw. So you take a number 20 drill, which is 161 thousandths, and drill a hole, and then this screw is self-tapping. You do that on this end, and then on the other end as well. To secure the bows to the truck, there's a support strap at each corner. So the part number is 12340208, and it might be possible to get them in tan. I think that's the same part number with a -2 behind it. It attaches with a screw that's the same 1/4 screw and length as what holds the reflectors on. So if you're buying new screws, just get 4 extra. So to actually install this cargo enclosure, I've got it flipped over on top of the existing soft top. The 5 eyelets that are on here will attach to the 5 1/4 turn buckles that are on the support bow. So I'm going to pull this back and attach it there. Under here where the cargo extension meets the existing soft top, I'm going to peel the Velcro back. Now the next trick will be to flip this all over. From here I can line it up on the top, making sure to get a good straight and tight seam. Here, just gonna slide the cover back. This is probably a lot easier with 2 people, but it's not terrible. On these buckles, you can see the injection molding flash from where the 2 sides of the mold didn't line up properly. So I'm gonna take a razor knife and remove that. Now the buckle just goes right on, much easier. With the straps that hold the bows in place tightened up, just take some Velcro strapping and you can secure the loose ends. Just doing a quick walk around here, kind of showing off the paint job. The doors are a little old, but ultimately the paint job came out really well. New cargo cover. And then, not too worried about it, but that drip was there from AM General. That's not my fault. Overall, a bunch of spray cans. This thing came out great.
Thanks for watching.